everybody. Today is Sunday. No, what is it? December 5th? December 5th.
All day today.
All day. December 5th, 2021. And this is Sentimental Sundays. I am here with one of my favorite people. This is...
I'm Mark Lewis.
Yeah. He said it all.
Miss Lips' oldest cousin.
Yes, he is. My older cousin, because there's even cousins older than us, right?
Yes, there is. Sometimes
Look,
I forget
I'm
about
de-aging you.
I appreciate the compliment.
Absolutely, babe. You don't look a day over 21.
Oh, man, stop it.
That's serious.
You
I'm
gotta
not
be
even
blushing.
trying. No, well, you're going to blush because watch all the comments.
Oh, stop it.
But hey, y'all, so you're here with Mrs. Lips for Sentimental Sunday. I'm here with Mark Lewis. And whenever I have a guest host with me, I always give them the options because I told you guys it is all things sex, love, life, and relationships. And Mr. Lewis chose life.
Absolutely.
What made you pick that topic? What was it that you was like, I'm going with life, cuz?
Well, I chose life because at the end of the day, I can speak from the experience that I experienced through my life. You know what I mean? So there's no real right or wrong answer that could be with that. And at the end of the day, it's all formulated on my opinions on how I see it and what I experienced through my journey so far.
Absolutely.
You know, so I don't think no one could speak better on life than me about my life.
Right.
So I chose that.
I love it. What is it about your life that you feel like you've gained the most experience from? What has taught you more about life? Has it been watching other people make mistakes? Has it been making your own mistakes? Has it been experiencing things or observing things?
Well, that's a good question. You know, there's a saying that was one of my favorites. They say a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. See, when you ask those type of questions, it depends on exactly what you're learning and what you've been through. So I feel you can learn through observation, and you can also learn through experience. You know, because growing up, where we're from, we had like a rite of passage that's almost like an upside down kingdom. See, I observed people going in and out of prison, and being that I was one of the late ones to go to prison, I felt like I didn't have nothing to add to that, because they would come back and you have a celebration for them. You know, they gave you money, care packages and things of that nature, and they would celebrate it. And I felt, damn, that looks like that's something cool to, you know, go through. That's from observing, that looked at fun. And then I made certain decisions. See, when you take the word homicide, that means to kill off someone else. Suicide means to kill yourself. Genocide means to kill off a nation. This side means to kill off other options. So I decided to kill off other options to get me closer to prison. You understand what I'm saying?
No, the people might not.
So when I could have played football, I could have graduated in 11th grade, but yet I decided subconsciously I wanted to be like everyone else that I was observing going in and out of prison because it was celebrated.
You thought it was the cool thing to do.
It was the coolest thing to do because when they came home, they was the stars of the neighborhood. You understand what I'm saying? And when you went to school, you were kind of almost shunned, and you were almost like a geek, or you were cracked on.
For doing the right thing.
Well, in society's eyes, yeah, for doing the right thing. But in urban community, you were projected as you thought you were better than everyone else. Because this is the indoctrination that's been pressed upon us. So when I decided to take the other route and to getting myself closer to prison, and when I actually experienced prison, the experience added to my life. And what I mean like that, it wasn't prison itself, it was the isolation. So I observed on one capacity, then I experienced on another capacity of the same demographic. So when I went to prison, it was a whole different ordeal than what I thought these guys were saying. Because when they came back, they all were able to trade stories, and it sounded like a fucking fun place to be.
So it makes me, you said something that's very interesting.
Right.
And it does happen in the urban community. Too often we celebrate the negative and we look down upon the positive.
Absolutely.
The person getting good grades in school, oh, you a nerd, you a geek.
That's right.
The person holding the football, you soft.
Yes, sir.
But the person in the street actually putting themselves at risk, creating the D side, which is the self-destruction of the decisions we make, right?
Absolutely. Or the other options we have at our fingertips.
We do that, and it's like, how do we get to that point of conditioning, and what should have been our resource for changing our thought process? Do we look to our parents? Do we look to the OGs to correct the behavior? Or do you believe that everybody has to go through their own path and learn on their own? Is there anything that could be done to change the trajectory of the perspective of people who do negative or think negative is cool?
Well, through my experience, I grew up in a single parent house, and mine was kind of different than what the national statistic is, which is 8 out of 10 families are raised by a single parent, but that single parent is either a mother or a grandmother. Mine was my father, but I had our grandmother to help out also. But when I wasn't at grandma's house, there was no real direction. So at the end of the day, you get caught in kind of a conundrum, because either you're gonna figure out a way to eat, or you're not gonna eat at all. And then when you're hungry, it's awful hard to study and to go to school and get good grades. So there's a cycle there that's at play, and it's more deeply rooted than more deeply rooted than decisions and options. I had options because I was able to excel at football, and it opened the door for other people that may have saw a deeper potential in me. So I had people of European descent that favored me and would invite me to the house and give me other options, to where I did not have to stay in our community, where I'm an exception to the rule, where everyone else in the community don't have those options. They can't shoot a jumper. They might not have anything of talent that can give them the option to open other doors for them later on in life. So it's almost like a Darwinism thing. And what Darwinism said is self-preservation. So whatever that paradigm is set, you self-preserve. You only go on with the frequency of the environment is. See, there's a word that's called habit and habitat, and it derives from one of the same Latin words. So whatever your habit is, or whatever your habitat is, becomes your habit. So whatever you see, you pick up. You understand what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Oh, because I was gonna say. Now you said something that was also interesting. You had exposure to people who believed in you, who had showed you a different way.
Absolutely.
Which some of our young black males and females in the community may have. But still, you had the option between thriving and surviving.
Right.
Thriving takes a little longer. Survival is like a point in time right now.
There's no obligation. The obligation is to survive.
Is to survive. And for people wondering, like, dang, well, if he had positive influences and he had these people who showed him differently, why is it that he still chose a path that led him to a place of isolation? And like you said, survival was calling at that time.
And then what I learned to know has psychology and things evolve throughout the decades. You start going back and looking at self through retrospect and said, with these all new terms and things, I had what I felt was survivor's guilt. Because I go stay in at my quarterback house or my cousin Charles' house, and anything you can imagine was in that refrigerator or in that pantry. But while I'm eating, I'm wondering if my siblings are okay. And then it'd be times where I got caught stealing out of my grandmother's deep freezer. I got caught stealing out of, my cousin Charles's refrigerator, my quarterbacks, and I'm putting shit in my book bag so I could bring it back for my brothers and sisters to eat. And then, I felt a certain type of guilt that I was doing okay when I was over there, but they're over there hungry. We don't know where my father is and things of that nature. And sometimes grandma don't have enough portions to feed everyone she already had there.
Because it was a lot of us.
It was a lot of us. So what I felt was like, you know what? I made a conscious decision that I'm going to go ahead and do at that time what's best for me and mine. And you hear that's a universal saying for everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it starts out that way. But then when you get the fast money and things of that nature, it's no longer I'm going to do what's best for me and mine. It's now you're addicted to what comes with everything that comes with the hustle.
Such as?
The fast money, the materialistic gains, and also the women that come with that. So now you have a sense of self-worth. Yes.
These outside things are feeding your desire to keep it up.
Absolutely. This is what you're predicating your value on now. Because growing up, when you look at TV, when you look at religion, there's nothing that looks like you. And life is all about dualities. So if you see white angels, you see a white God, you see a white tooth fairy, you see a white Santa Claus.
Yes.
And they're all in the greatest of glory. And I'm not saying that those were created for those type of people. But when you see that and that's pressed upon you, you put in your subconscious that at the end of the day, you look nothing like that. So the duality of that is, I must not be worth that.
Right. You said something very interesting, cuz we're siblings. Our parents were siblings, and it makes me think you didn't. I had the benefit, I guess, the stepping stool of being able to live in grandma's home.
Yes, ma'am.
And be fed every day.
That's right.
You, being your father's child, you were raised. You and your siblings were raised under your father's roof.
Absolutely.
And it makes me think of, when we think of family, right? We always follow the maternal side.
That's right.
It's almost like the mother's children are going to be looked after by the family more than the father's children. And it makes me wonder, why is, I shouldn't never question why, but what is it about that setup that might be setting other relatives up to not have their needs met while others are? You know, me,
Right.
for instance, it never dawned on me to sell drugs and have to feed my siblings because I wasn't put in that position.
Right.
I was able to go to school and get perfect attendance and graduate because I didn't have my stomach rumbling.
That's
You
right.
know, I didn't have to worry about if my siblings was eating because we had that benefit of our mother's parents.
Yes, ma'am.
But yet, a lot of children, they don't get that from their father's side. What is it about our community that there's that disconnect? And maybe in other communities, I don't know, but I don't live them.
Right,
But a lot of times, it flows through the mother's side.
Through the mother side?
Yes. Very rarely is the kid at the paternal grandparent's house.
Right.
It's usually the maternal grandparent's house.
That's an interesting
Concept, right? Yes.
Right.
Were you close to your mother's side?
Not at all.
You were closer to your father's side.
To my father's side.
Do you think our family is the exception to that rule?
Well, I don't know, because I can only speak to our side of the family.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And if that's the case, when you think and you read history, and before there was a patriarchic system, there was a matriarchic system. And what the matriarchic system was, that the woman was the head, and that the woman had multiple husbands. Now, in the mountains of Tibet, there's women called, there's a tribe called, I might botch the name, but it's like the Mero.
Okay.
And what they do is that they marry as many men as they want to, and when they get tired of that one man, they cycle him out. And how that worked was they were able to thrive, and they were the strongest of the strongest. Now, the word matter comes from the word matar, and matar in Greek is what makes up the foundation. So when you graduate from your alma mater, you become, that's what you came out of, alma mater. So the natural instinct and the natural genetics of life comes from the maternal part and the essence and the mitochondria of the female. See, there's no human being that cannot be born into this created and born into this world without coming through the womb of a woman. So it's through the natural process and the maternal instinct of the woman to allow human to be. So when you talk in duality, all that is microcosmic and macrocosmic. So being that we need a woman to be created, and we need a woman to step on this plane of existence, we also need that woman's love and that woman's family also to mature and maternalize and become the best potential you. You understand what I'm saying? That's why the mitochondria is the DNA that's passed down through every generation. That's why they were able to find the first Eve. Not the first Adam, the first Eve. Because they could track the mitochondria all the way through the maternal line and find out that that's the instinct and the genetic essence of the black woman.
I'm going to go here with you. I know you personally, but the audience may not.
Okay.
Do you believe in the concept that women came from men?
No.
Right. Okay. How do you believe life came to be?
Well, I can't. See, when you use the word, I'm gonna use word semantics, because when you use the word believe, there's a certain type of levels into belief, because belief leaves room for doubt. Because if I'm at the airport waiting for you to pick me up, and I believe you're coming to pick me up, there's still some room to doubt. I'm only believing.
Right.
So I don't have. See, the word una means one. That's why we only have a universe, because we don't have enough information to compare other universes to see what this universe came from. So we can only go by what we can observe and what's tangible. So we study our own universe to get the essence and the knowledge and the data on how other universe may exist. But it's called the universe because we only have one. Just like it's called a unicorn because he has one horn. You understand what I'm saying? So we don't have no other intelligent design to compare. Like they say, well, if you find a watch in the middle of the road, you know that someone made it. You can only know that someone made it because you have the intellect and the knowledge to see that other watches were created. So you can use that design and say, well, I know a watchmaker made that watch. But everybody use religion and say, well, if you don't know who made it, it had to be God. I don't know that because there's not enough evidence for me to point to that because I don't have no other intelligent design to compare it against.
So you say something, everything he's saying is interesting me, folks, because I do my best thinking in the shower when I'm driving or when I'm just laying in the bed before I go to sleep. And what you just said made me think of something. Is life real? And I say that, don't think I'm crazy, but we have dreams, right?
Absolutely.
I think dreams are one of the most surreal and underappreciated things that humans can experience. You literally are experiencing something else in your subconscious.
Absolutely.
I don't think we give enough credit to what that dream is. And we could wake up and be like, oh shit, that felt so real.
Absolutely. I mean, you can have an orgasm in a dream.
Without anybody ever touching you.
Absolutely.
So is it possible that life as we know it, we could be someone else's dream?
Yeah.
The universe's dream.
Absolutely. I've always thought, there's people in what they call Silicon Valley, and this is where all your PCs and your processors and everything is created. Facebook and everything of higher.
This metaverse they're coming out with.
Absolutely, but they have a collective of people who believe that our life might even be a simulation. A simulation, almost like a game, because when you play a video game, you're controlling the aspect of everything that's going on that simulation. You're watching and you're controlling certain things. And then even when you look at the Bible, you look at other religions, and you place the God factor in it. He's supposed to be watching everything we're doing, so it's almost like a video game, almost like a simulation. Yes. You understand what I'm saying? So it can be of a dream, because sometimes you don't know if your dream is reality. You don't know if your reality is a dream. And if your dream is lucid enough, sometimes you forget in the near future, was that a dream or was that something I actually experienced?
Right.
But I read a book. Now I'm gonna go left, but I'm gonna go about dreams.
All right.
I read a book, and it's called The Biology of Belief. Now, it's by a guy named Dr. Bruce Lipton. And what Bruce Lipton was, he was a neurosurgeon. So what he would do, he'll get in on transplants with the liver, with the heart, and certain major organs. What started happening was his patients started getting these organs, and their whole lifestyles, how they knew it, changed abruptly. You had an old woman who started loving Harley Davidsons. You knew a computer scientist who knew nothing about sports but could name the whole line of the 1972 Dolphins. You understand what I'm saying? Then you had a young woman who started having these real vivid dreams about being murdered. So he started to be intrigued, and then he went through the courts of law to see if he can start a collective group to see why these dreams started affecting his patients this way. And we'll come to find out, when he went and was able to get the donors' families to come in, part of the psychotherapy he did, and they started telling the stories of what each recipient of a donor was like. So everyone that got whatever potential organ experienced everything that one recipient, the donor had. One was a 72 Dolphins fan, one was a Harley Davidson fan, one guy was murdered. So much so that the little girl that was having the dreams was able to identify the murderer as the donor's friend, and they used her testimony to prosecute this guy. It's called The Biology of Belief. So what Dr. Francis Lipton did, he left that alone and decided to start to study blood. So blood, what we now have. So when he studied blood, he comes up with the synopsis that blood has memory. Now, I'm not veering away from what your dreams is, but I take it to another level. Sometimes our brain collects information that we don't focus on, but we see out our peripheral. So we'll collect data without even know we're collecting data. Almost, you know what I mean? So when we're collecting this data, we encode it in our brain. Now, if the blood carries memory, and these people had these organs that were able to pick up the genetic traits and pick up visualizations of everything that the donor was able to experience, you have the blood of your ancestors. So sometimes you may see people you've never seen in your life in your dreams. You may have experiences in your dreams, but you put it into a modern fashion for what your brain has picked up throughout society or throughout your regular day. And then the brain does what it does, and then it codes, and it amalgamates everything into a dream. You could be seeing people from your ancestors' past. because you
You
all
never
have
met him a day in
never
your
met
life.
him a day in your life, because you have the blood of your ancestors coursing through your veins. So if Dr. Bruce Lipton can prove genetically that blood has memory, there's no doubt that your dreams are just a re-manifestation of whatever your ancestors saw, but through the mind's eye of your everyday modern life.
Makes me think of deja vu. I literally had this conversation with another relative of ours yesterday. And I said to her, I said, deja vu can hit us
Yes, ma'am.
in such a way where it'd be like, I experienced this before.
Been here
So I
before.
asked her, how is deja vu for you? And she goes, deja vu is almost like our spirit has already experienced something and the mind is just now catching up to it. It's almost like they met at a point. So I said, that's interesting, because I've never looked at deja vu like that. I look at deja vu as that I believe when we pass away, we experience something else. I believe in recycled spirits. I believe that when life leaves our body and the shell still exists, it then goes on to something else.
Absolutely.
And I said, perhaps deja vu is this spirit reliving something that it had experienced prior in the brain making that connection. So it's almost like we know, we all agree that deja vu is something that just, boom, hits us. We believe that the spirit has experienced it, but the way the spirit went about it is differently. And perhaps that whole dialogue you just provided means that what we're made of, our spirit is fueling the blood and the organs, and it has experienced something in a former life, way past life, that we're just now able to witness in this life with this body and this mind.
Ooh. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep. You have certain occults. Now the word occult has been demonized and things that
Cult,
nature.
C-U-L-T.
Yes, but cults is totally something different. My thing of cults is where you have it's almost like a dictatorship.
Like Jim Jones, the people who drank the Kool-Aid.
Absolutely.
Was that a cult?
That's a cult. A cult is when you all have a collective mind and you try to make you all believe a certain essence, but it doesn't harm anyone else within that essence. You understand what I'm saying? A cult,
Yeah.
like occult science and things. It's almost like what religion would call secular. It's outside of the normal realms of ideologies and social cohesion on what beliefs are. So you have certain occults that believe that the past, present, and future are all at the same time, and that they'll give an example. Like if you lost your keys, and it took you an extra 2 minutes to find your keys, and then on your way to work, the same way you take every day, there was an accident, and you so happened to miss it by those 2 minutes, they say that you came from the future into that present to hide your keys from yourself, to save yourself. And they attribute that to deja vu, because you're experiencing the present and the future all at the same time.
Wow, I've never heard that one before.
Absolutely.
I've always looked at something like that is, and maybe this has all come together, is the universe saving you for something that they know is to come. You know, when people get pissed like, oh my God, this accident is holding me up.
Right.
But suppose it saved you from getting T-boned at the next light.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Losing your keys.
Yes, ma'am.
Suppose it saved, a bridge collapsed in Florida and killed people. Suppose you were supposed to travel under that path at that moment, and that was the universe saying, hold up, I need to stall you for a couple moments.
When you say that, not to combat or argue, when you use it in the universe conscious, what's so different than you saying God? See, I don't fall into those realms because it leaves too much spookism with me. You understand what I'm saying? And you leave in like a higher power or some mystical shit. I mean, what I just said was kind of mystical. I'm only going, and I'm not saying that's what I agree with. I'm open with a free mind to encompass all that, because there's all possibilities. What I'm saying is that when you start using that, you're just substituting certain beliefs and ideologies, and you're using certain words to almost like a red herring to deflect from being a religious person. You might just say, "Nah, I'm spiritual." Well, all I'm saying is that when you take the laws, you take the laws of natural life, you have cause and you have effect. So whatever there's a cause, there's an effect to that cause, and whatever the effect was, it came from a cause. So being that there was an accident, the reason why that bridge ain't fall on you, was the effect because of the cause of that accident from allowing you to proceed.
Delaying you're right.
Absolutely.
I am religious. Our grandmother, the influences, your habits are based on your habitat,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Our grandmother was very religious. She made us get up
Still is to this day.
Still is to this day. Made us get up every day and go to church with family, friends, and I believe in God. I believe in her beliefs. It could be because of my habitat, but I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory. I don't believe that life just happened because some explosion and organisms and stuff came to be. So when I think of the universe and I think of God, I think of it one and the same. The grass grows and dies for a reason. Trees are here so that we can have life because trees put out what we need in order to survive. And what we exhale, trees need in order to survive. So I feel like all of it works together. I don't see myself as religious because I feel like that separates people. I feel like religion is like languages. It's people's ways of communicating with their beliefs, their higher beliefs. So
But you opened the dialogue just now by saying I am religious because of my grandmother.
I believe in God. I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I believe in God because of our grandmother. So that's the belief. Whereas others Buddhists believe in different things. Jews believe in different things. I do believe in God because of grandma.
But at one point you believed in Santa, no? And then you grew up with a tooth fairy. You grew up, did your own research.
I believed in Santa because I was like, how these gifts got here, and it was taught
right.
Until I saw them coming in with the gifts from the door, and I was like, so y'all Santa.
So you wouldn't believe in a Big Bang Theory because you don't think that happened out of nowhere, but you believe in a God theory where that happened out of nowhere.
I do, and I think that's the biggest mystery of life. I really think that's one of the biggest mystery of life is how did we come to be? And that's how it got me. I'm thinking like, are we a figment of somebody else's imagination? Are we players in a dream? Are we a part of someone else's game and they're controlling and manipulating how we move about? Yeah.
Well, I'll go with the Big Bang Theory because at the end of the day, that's what's tangible for me. I'm a big guy. I was prosecuted, and our whole life existence is predicated upon evidence and things of that nature. And at the end of the day, I'm a big evidence, tangible evidence type of guy. And as of right now, it's a theory. And with theories it's staged until someone else comes and disproves whatever that theory is. So as of right now, that theory stays for me because up until that point, they can exactly tell you almost to the millisecond when the bang happened. So there was proof of a Big Bang. I just don't understand, and I could never grasp the ideology and the concepts on how you guys or nothing is.
You speak freely. This is a non-judgment zone. You are entitled to your opinion.
I can never grasp that. And then, if I was to grasp it, it would make me almost bitter to the point to where, if that's so, it sure does seem like that entity or that being has favorites down here. You understand what I'm saying? So if this was to be, how can I worship?
Why are little kids dying from cancer?
Right. Why is there a certain type of beings that's above other beings? And then how can those same beings that worship that one being and the ones that's oppressed by those one beings all worship the same being? So it's it's almost like a conundrum for me.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So how can my oppressor and I, being oppressed, worship the same creation or the same creator?
At what point in life did you get to that perspective?
At one point in life when I had time to think.
During the moment of isolation?
My isolation, that's the best thing that happened to me because I read the Bible. The Bible is a very good book for stories and life lessons. And what happened when Jesus went into the tomb, he went in for 3 days. Now, I studied under a group of men where they say knowledge and wisdom and understanding is the keyest essence to build character in human and build character in men. When you have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, everything else comes to light and you change your essence. So I found that to be, wow, that's 1, 2, and 3. And then in the story of the Bible, when Jesus resurrected, he went into a tomb alone. And when he came back out, his disciples no longer remembered him. And he didn't fuck with his disciples no more. Because he had ascended. He had elevated above his disciples. He was no longer on the same plane of when he had got saintly. So he went into a tomb, isolation, stayed for 3 days, gained knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of himself. Then resurrected from a dead state, not actually physical death, but of a mental death. So now he was no longer able to play the same game that he was playing with his disciples, because now he was mentally above them. And that's how I took it.
Gotcha. And in that, allowed you to develop the perspective you have
On life.
on life now.
Absolutely. And reading and history and things of that nature.
Very deep, folks. I bet y'all ain't think y'all would get this level of intellect when you tuned in. See why everybody didn't want the show, right? Different perspectives. We will not argue. We will not debate somebody else's views. We will respect them. What I want to know from you, cuz, on the other side of life is death.
Okay.
Yet, I don't think people either, I think people either take it too serious or they don't take it serious enough.
how you that's loaded.
It is
take
loaded.
It too serious or they don't take
or
it
they
serious.
take and I err on the side of sometimes they take it too serious in terms of, oh my God, at the end of life it's death, that's it, I'm dying, I'm gone, I'm done, it's, let me hurry up and do what I gotta do while I'm experiencing this. And then I say we don't take it too serious because too often people, we plan for everything, right? You plan to come to this live with me.
Absolutely.
You got up, you said this is what I'm gonna put on, I'm gonna rock this nice hat
Absolutely.
with this shirt,
That's
throw my pecan Tim.
Good
You
teacher.
know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I got my cut. You planned to essentially when you did this live.
Good teacher.
I planned for this live. Had my
Absolutely.
production assistant, but we don't plan. Too many people dying don't plan for death.
Mm.
Now you're leaving the grieving, the people who love you, to figure out, did they want to be buried? Did they want to be cremated?
That's right.
Did they want to wear this suit or did they want to wear those slacks?
That's right.
But do they want this song played or that song? Like, why isn't people, and when we think of plans, we think, I don't want people to feel like they have to think about death so much that they almost manifest it. I think that's what scares us, is that we feel like if we talk about it, we're manifesting it. It's going to happen anyway, folks. From the day you were born.
You start the process of dying.
Amen. So, for me, it's like, why aren't people putting those instructions here and now so that the last moment, the last time somebody sees or experiences them is the way they want it to go out?
That's a good question.
You know what I'm saying? That's why,
yeah.
Are we not taking it serious enough?
I can only speak from the demographic. I can only speak from the demographic of some may say Aboriginal, some may say foundational blacks. I'm gonna say African Americans. I can only speak from the demographic of most African Americans on this continent. Now, there's no lie, there's no mystery that at the end of the day we live. Okay, I'm gonna bring it all about.
Okay.
Say you had 103-degree temperature. Mm-hmm. You were late. There was a bed in here. You were on your deathbed, and a lion came through that door. What happens is that your hypothalamus will start kicking in your brain, and an adrenaline will start to function. Seep adrenaline into your bones, into your body, into your muscles, to where you will be able to jump out of your bed. You may not be able to run far, but it will suppress your immune system and will allow you to get away. Mm. So that's called fight, flight, or you have freeze. It's three on fight,
yes.
Fight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So you were you might not have been strong enough to fight, but you was able to, your hypothalamus were able to kick in, the adrenaline was able to pump, and you were able to fight. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Get away and say
Get away.
Right.
So when you have a demographic of people who continues to operate with the hypothalamus going through and functioning and adrenaline pumping, their whole life is in a form of flight. That's why they have the worst health, they have high blood pressure, they have heart disease and things of that nature, because they're continually either fighting or they're continually flighting. Mm. So they're living in the aspects of almost survival. So while they're too busy trying to survive, either fighting or flighting, they don't have time to plan. That's not even part of their requisite. They're not thinking about death. They're thinking about surviving today. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, they're not gonna be able to get a life insurance policy or want to have that talk about what to do when it's my time to go, because that's so far from their mind, because they're trying to survive today. Mm-hmm. They're either fleeing or they're either fighting. Mm. So death isn't even encompassed into their mind's eye.
So for those who aren't in fight or in flight, and they don't have to worry about survival because they're thriving. They're able to go to work and know that their bill's gonna be paid and know that their children are gonna be fed, and we go about life and we plan vacations for those individuals.
When I was in the streets, I didn't have a care about what to do with me when I'm about to die. Now that I'm comfortable, just how I planned what outfit I was gonna wear and I made my appointment for my beard and all that other. My daughter and my significant other knows what to do with my body. Understand what I'm saying? I have life insurance.
How do they know? Because you shared that.
Because I shared that. Because now I'm in a more comfortable place in my life to where now I'm ready to accept the fact that I'm going to die. Because now I'm comfortable on what I'm doing. I'm comfortable in life that now I'm preparing to die. But when I was in the streets, I was trying to stay alive. I was trying not to die.
And funny you say that, because that's a paradigm in and of itself. People in the streets are almost 10 times as likely to die.
Right.
But they ain't thinking about that.
Absolutely not.
Very interesting. That's it, folks. This is life. This is why Cuz picked that topic. It definitely life transcends amongst several different areas.
Do you have your life insurance and what to do with? Yeah, and you're living pretty. You might not be as comfortable as you want. I really think it's predicated upon the comfortability of your lifestyle.
Yeah, and through exposure. I've worked in the field of long-term care for 14 years.
There you go.
So I've seen people who actually went through the life cycle before my eyes. They have died, and the family's like, well, I don't know what to do. And then you have people who have passed away, and they got folders. Well, mom wanted this, she wanted that, check. And it made the grieving process a lot easier for them to bear, because they didn't have to figure things out while still missing and mourning the life of their loved one.
Good teacher.
Yeah. So, what is the biggest lesson you learned in life, and who taught you?
The biggest lesson. Comparison is the killer of all joys.
Come on, somebody.
So
I like that. I got it immediately, but can you?
Comparison is the killer of all joys, because if you continuously compare your life to what someone else has, or what the social norm, or what the social status of success and happiness should be, you will go down a road that's full of anguish, depression, anxiety, unhappiness. See, at the end of the day, this is crazy as it may be, I'm not going to say exactly what I had financially, but I had the cars, I had the women, I put down on a house in Atlanta, Georgia, a nice big house. When all that was taken away from me and I was stripped bare, and I was thrown into my isolation, I found myself most happiest because I was able to go within and see exactly who I was and who everyone else was. So my life lesson was, wow, I wasn't even really being myself. See, in our culture, there's a thing, see, when you got a hood of a car covers the engine. A neighborhood covers zones in an urban community or real estate. And a hood covers a head. But in our community, a hood, what we call manhood, covers who you may really be, because of the perception that society or whatever the social consciousness of that area tells you what a man is. So I was really afraid to be exactly who I wanted to be. I wanted to be the nerd. I wanted to play football and things of that nature. But my hood wouldn't even allow that, because that was an exception to the rule. And we didn't have the people in certain, like in Compton and all that, where the athlete was protected by the gangsters. My hood, you were a clown for being an athlete. You were a clown for being a bookworm. So what I say is that comparison is the killer of all joys. You're too busy predicating on what happiness is, on what success is, on what health is, and things by other people's experiences, instead of going within and figuring out what is it that Mark likes.
Yes.
What is
and
it that
does
Mark
success
loves?
mean to you?
And what does success mean to you?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I'm big on that. I give a talk to teenage girls.
Okay.
Specifically teenage moms. I feel like as a person who's been a teenage mom,
That's right.
I could speak to that topic.
Okay.
And one of my tips to them is always define what success is to you. Don't look at what Jill is doing and Jane has done. Look at you. And when you say comparison is the killer of all joy, yet so many people are comparing themselves to what other people make and how they operate. Yet your light and my light ain't gonna shine at the same time.
Not at all. And a light in a tunnel is not always a train. You know what I mean? So you have to differentiate on exactly what it is you're facing for you, and exactly what your focus should be. And I figured out, man, wow, I love to read, and I never knew that because I never had took the opportunity to read. And now I love to read. I love to work out. I love to watch love stories. I cry on podcasts because I'm so in tune with who I am now, and I don't have to hide no longer because now I understand that most of the African Americans in this country, African American men, are hiding behind a facade
Under that hood.
Under that hood, it's
You're
a
very
covering.
attractive when you cry. No, I'm seriously. You wear well, and so many men though.
Yeah.
Feel like they have to hide those emotions and thinking that maybe you're not with the right women or around the right circle of people clown you for showing emotion. Because I think we should be free to express.
Well, it goes back to that statistic that 8 out of 10 urban community families is headed by a woman, and a lot of times these women have sons who tell them at 8, 9 years old, "You're the man of the house now. I need you when I go work these doubles. I need you to take care of your siblings."
Is that unfair to the child?
It's extremely unfair to the child.
How does that single mother manage that situation?
Because
that's her reality. That's her survival.
I can't speak from the single mother's perspective because I don't have the right in regards to. But as a
single dads, if there was ever a single dad,
it should be by committee. It should be, you know what I mean. It used to be the term. It took a village to raise a child. Yes. That's why cousins and all that was called. Some female cousins, they all were called moms or aunts instead of, because that was the holistic and organic way. It was almost impossible for just a mother and a father to raise a child. The whole family did it because every individual could give a piece of themselves and then in tune that child with a better odds of being successful at whatever that child was going to be. It gave them more tools to use. So when you handicap a young man or a little boy to putting this seed in his head that he has to be the man of the house, you rob him of his childhood. You rob him of his puberty.
Yes.
You rob him from that. So now they go and they start resenting the people that look like their mother. They might start resenting women as a whole. They might start, you know what I mean? Now they always may even have the attitude and the violence that their mother prescribed because that's what the environment of the house brought.
The frustrations of the struggle.
Right. And I'm not blaming this on black women or anything else. I'm just saying that this is a viable concept.
Yes.
Because our men today, you can be murdered for looking at them different. Just by looking at them. So that's an emotional defect. That's an inferiority status. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so instead of thinking, they're going straight off for impulse. And then we have the nerve to turn around and say women are emotional. Well, we inherit that emotional from women, and men are more emotional than the women. Because we'll take something that we'll make a permanent decision off a temporary emotion.
Happens way too often.
That's
why I developed the 24-hour rule for myself. For that, what you just said. Because I tend to react impulsively, hastily, when I feel like I'm violated or disrespected. Yeah. And now I say, Viola, you sit with this for 24 hours. Every time I sat with it, I almost always felt differently.
Ain't that something?
Almost always felt different later.
Well, they say anger is the wind that blows out the logic. Anger is the wind that blows out the candle of logic in the mind.
I can see that. Absolutely. Where if you just let the window down, block the wind,
absolutely,
let that candle blow, tomorrow
it's a different flame.
It's a different flame. And if you still feel that way, then you react. At least you know it's not on impulse. You gave yourself the opportunity and the time to think it through.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, shit, because back me up. All right. Something I need to ask you, because we talked about life, we talked about death, and we talked about lessons. And your biggest lesson you learned through isolation.
Yeah.
Also in isolation, you lost the person who took care of you.
My father.
Your father.
Absolutely.
And during that time, that's probably a big loss to take. Mm-hmm. But you also said that you weren't able to be who you wanted to be due to our society putting more emphasis on the negative aspect.
Absolutely.
If you could go back and speak to your 10-year-old self who's carrying that football, who wants to get good grades. Okay. The age you are now, and the wisdom you have now, what could you give to these 10 to 12-year-olds who may be in a similar position as you, or to a dad who is, has their child looking up to them at this age where they might be following that path of negativity? Like, what would you say to your 10-year-old self?
Wow. What would I say to my 10-year-old self?
To change your trajectory, to change your path. Because back then you didn't know any better. You only traveled the path that you thought was better.
You know,
because you were in survival.
That question I almost feel like it's almost like a fallacy, because I had people that said things to me who made the same, at the end of the day, who was going to make that same mistakes. But, I mean, at the end of the day, made those same mistakes and would give me advice. You know what I mean? But to answer your question, I would just, being that, I don't know what I would say, because, you know, people hear things, and 99% of the time, they hear and they're not listening. You know what I mean? And something with the mind, it takes a special person to listen and then take advice and then apply it. And I can say to the fathers, I can say to the children that, you know, make sure you point them in the right direction, and you give them the tools that they need to excel. But it's totally incumbent upon the child to use those tools when he's out in society. See, the parents get blamed, I think, unfairly for a lot of things that their children do, because at the end of the day, they can give them the tools, they can show them the right way, but they can't walk that path for them. They can't use that drill and hammer for them.
However, I wonder, I interrupt you because you're right. And my next question to you is going to be, when you have children who come from the same parents, you can come from the same building and have different views. You can come from the same household and have different perspectives. You come from the same habitat and have different habits.
Absolutely.
How is that? So then do we go back to free will? Do we go back to it's the perspective of the person and how they want to travel?
Yeah, but it can't even go to free will, because then when you take a pecking order, and if that child isn't the only child, and let's just say that child has 4 or 5 siblings, that love can't be distributed evenly. So a child is always going to feel an odd man out. So you could instill the same morals and values and give them the same portions at dinner and all that. But a child or 2 or 3 is going to feel like the oldest might be getting more love, or the baby might be getting more love, and the parent might think, yeah, I'm loving more the same. I'm just loving them differently. So when you have to spread things up like that, somebody's always going to feel like they're coming up short. So when they leave outside them doors, their life might take a totally different trajectory on how they prescribed and how they prescribed or how they perceived what the love they were given. You understand what I'm saying? So a middle child they actually got a scientific term called middle child syndrome.
Yes, they do. For that reason, you're right.
So
they're often forgot about, and because the oldest is getting the attention, the youngest is getting babied.
And then sometimes the oldest feels a certain type of way because he was the first or she was the first, was treated in a certain capacity. Then when the parents got into the swing of things, the ones under them had a little bit more leeway. So in their subconscious, like, wow, they get treated a little bit better than I ever got treated. You understand what I'm saying? So I really can't answer that question. But at the end of the day, a child always wants to be loved. I'm not saying I wasn't loved, but at the end of the day, I don't think I was hugged enough. I don't think my father came to enough of my football games. He gave me the impression that it was whatever. You understand what I'm saying? So if there's a 10-year-old boy and he has a football in his hand, his father needs to be there, show continuous support. If he doesn't have a mother, get a feminine aspect into that child's life, because he's going to do everything in his natural instinct subconsciously to attract that feminine energy. You understand what I'm saying? It takes 2 to make a child. It takes 2 and even more to raise one.
A child. Yeah.
That's the it doesn't go out of the micro and macrocosmic of the universe. So if it takes 2 to make one, it's damn sure impossible to have.
Raise one.
Absolutely.
Or more, like you said.
Or more.
Yeah.
That totally goes against the codes of nature.
Yes, so many parents will, like you said, that was your reality. They don't. It's almost like, for instance, my child. What you want to do today? I want to be a YouTuber. What you want to do tomorrow? I want to stream video games. Yeah. And your parents were like, what you want to do next week? I want to go, and now I want to do hockey. It's like, man, I ain't doing hockey. You wanted to do YouTube.
That's right.
I got you all the equipment. You wanted to be a gamer. I went and got you a PC. I ain't supporting this hockey yet. I think that's a mistake we make as parents. I don't care what your child wants to do. You should always foster that, because we never know what's going to stick.
Support.
Always support it. Allow that child to evolve because they don't know what they want to do at 10. They ain't gonna know what they want to do at 12. I'm 40 and don't know what the fuck I
I
want to
heard
do.
a podcast about 2 months ago. It's a guy by the name Quentin Tarantino. Now he was getting
The producer?
Yeah. Now his mother punished him vehemently for writing scripts. Felt like he should be doing something else. That he basically said his mother said that shit ain't going nowhere. But he didn't want to go outside and play. He didn't want to play sports. All he wanted to do was sit in his room and write scripts. Mother didn't support him. To this day, he doesn't do anything for his mother.
What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that, I use that as a barometer. You understand what I'm saying? He actually turned out for the better and the greater good because he made something of himself.
And what he loved doing.
Right,
so
one
young,
or two things is gonna happen. His mother discouraged him. He could have went off and been a drug addict or things of that nature. But what happened was now it inhibited a positive relationship with his mother because he feels, well, she didn't want me to do this. And
so why should she benefit from it?
Why should she benefit from it?
Yeah.
You understand? So I was just using that as a barometer to be careful on what you shit on when it comes to your children.
Yeah. Oh my God, so on point. I literally, now I'll admit, I'm new to Instagram. I don't really like social media. I'm there for stuff like this because I feel like we've gotten to the point where we could share things that's really beneficial to the next generation.
Absolutely.
So on my Instagram, I almost always watch stories, but very rarely will I flip. I go scroll through the timeline. And I will go to the explore page because I like to see the random stuff. And there was a post from a guy. He said, I wanted to do ballet. My mother shunned that. She told me not to do it. I wanted to write poetry. My mother shunned that. She told me not to do it. He said, I wanted to be in a dance group. My mother shunned that. She told me not to do it. He was like, all the time she was trying to prevent me from being gay. And I still ended up being gay. And all she did was place a divide between us.
Whew. That's not bad.
Yeah. So it's like the way we parent isn't going to change our children from being who they are.
Absolutely.
It's just going to sometimes drive a wedge
That's
between
right.
us.
And she was forcing masculinity on him when he wasn't supposed to be masculine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I'm telling you. You rob these boys of their childhood dreams and puberty. So.
One question for you. Do we have any questions, Chandler?
No.
Okay. So one question I have for you. When we think about life, and we think about the number of years we have, and we know that varies depending on, the individual. But the average life expectancy, let's say, is, I think it's 85 years for women, 75 years for men. When we think of the number of years that we have to do what we need to do you think life is not, do you think we don't have enough years or we have too many?
See, I'm long-winded. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I love it.
All right. I was green when I went into the prison industrial system, and what that means is I knew nothing. I had to learn on the go. I wound up what they call walking the yard. I wound up, it's when you go in the yard and you walk the track and you think. So I wound up walking with an older gentleman. Now this man, he would be at all the basketball games cracking on the players. He would crack on me. He has so much life in him, and almost like he was happy to be here. So he took a liking to me, and then one day in the lunch line, he didn't come to lunch, and one of the inmates was like, yo, you walk in the yard with Kato. He don't usually walk with dudes with outdates. What the fuck that mean? He's like, you're going home one day. I'm like, yeah. He's like, Kato's never going home. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, he's a lifer. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, he doesn't fuck with dudes that go home because he's a lifer. He only talks to other lifers because they got something in common. So I'm like, wow. So I asked him, I said, yo, what made you take a liking to me? He said, it was your energy, it was your vibe, man. He said, I don't mess with dudes that go home because I don't think they have any room to complain to me. I'm never going home. I said, but Kato, I thought you was going home soon by the way you carry yourself. He said, because I live in the moment. I live in a moment. Because if I thought that I'm never getting out of this place, I'll go hang it up. He said, so I don't make plans for tomorrow. I don't think about when I'm going to die, that I'm going to die in here. When we're talking, I'm in our conversation. When we're walking, I'm in our walk. So I use Cato's philosophy on every day in my life. I'm only about the dash between the year I was born and the year I'm going to die. because the dash is the symbolism of life.
That's what's really going to speak to who you are and what you did and
What-
how you
and
accomplished it. Yep.
and what you accomplished. And then I see that dash, and I said, wow. One day I'm leaving the cemetery visiting my father, and when I turned out onto Delaware Ave, I saw there was dashes in the road. And I said, wow, even in the road, you can't, you know, these dashes is basically going somewhere. It's keeping you on a certain trajectory. So I saw that dash has not only representing life, but representing a journey.
A journey, for sure.
So I don't really get caught in the essence of what I have to do, or what I should be doing, or what I need to do by what age or a certain time. I'm here for the journey. I'm here for the ride. I'm not really too planned on what my destination is. I'm enjoying the flight. I'm enjoying the bus ride. Too much we forget how comfortable, or look out the airplane window, because we're thinking of what we're going to do when we get to Cabo, or when we get to Cancun and things of that nature, and you missed all the beautiful view outside the airplane window. So my whole life is predicated upon, my answer is the journey. I don't mind being in my own, you know what I mean, the age I am, and what society would say, I got a menial job. That's your opinion. I feel good about me.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm happy as I've ever been about where I am in my life. This is my journey. I'm enjoying my journey. Some of my best times I ever had is my ride into work.
No, I'm good.
You understand what I'm saying? It's all about the moment for me, and Kato taught me that. So I don't really worry about the destinations and what someone has done to me, or the lack of that. I'm here for the moment. I'm here for the conversation. I'm here for the ride into the work. I'm here for the ride home from work. I'm here for the gym. I'm here to talk with my
Here
child.
for the traffic, the
Yeah,
lost keys,
all that.
all of it.
I enjoy every bit of that.
And I think too often people don't live in the moment. One of my biggest frustrations when I go out with my kids and my husband and we do lunch or dinner is this.
That's right. Looking at the phone.
We got a rule. When we're at the dinner table, phones are put away.
That's
This is a
amazing.
moment, because a lot of things can happen. A lot of things could be learned. A lot of things
Absolutely.
could be shared when you just interact with the person. Your phone is always going to be there. Social media is always going to be there.
Never going nowhere.
Never going nowhere.
Nope.
But I may not.
That's right.
So why miss an opportunity to live in the moment with the person in your presence?
That's right. I'm here for the journey. That's my outlook on life.
I think that is a perfect way to end our segment. That brought us to the hour. So folks, live your truth. Live your dash. We don't know what the end date is going to be.
That's right.
But while you're here, you need to be able to enjoy life. Define what success is to you. Try to live with no regrets and just learn from the decisions you make. Because ultimately, you are the one in charge of your life.
Good.
Any final words?
Love, peace, and much prosperity, how you see fit.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. This is another segment of Sentimental Sundays with your girl, Mrs. Lips, and my guest host, Mark Lewis. We hope you got something from this conversation. If you couldn't tune in live, we will post it so you can tune in later. Y'all be well, take care, and be safe. Peace.